Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we're going to talk about something every family historian faces: how to protect and preserve your genealogy from the unexpected. We spend so much time and care building our family history, and the truth is, it only takes one disaster or oversight for years of our work to be lost. That's why this conversation is so important. So, we'll start by looking at why preservation really matters, then talk about some of the most common risks. From there, I'll walk you through 4 practical steps you can take to safeguard your genealogy. And along the way, I'll share some tools and tips that you can start using right away. Now, just so you know, when I use the word genealogy in today's presentation, I don't just mean charts or research. I'm using it as a big umbrella term that covers everything connected to your family's history, meaning your documents, research, stories, photos, and even keepsakes. So anytime you hear me say genealogy, think of it as all of those pieces together. And now, let's take this a step deeper. Let's start with a simple but powerful question. What does your genealogy really mean to you? Is it just records, documents, and files? Or is it the connection to your ancestors, the stories that define your family, and the years of effort you've invested? For most of us, genealogy means all of these things together, and that's exactly why losing it would be devastating. Now I want you to imagine this. What if disaster struck and destroyed your genealogy, your binders, photos, and family files? Would this be a total loss for you, or would you be prepared with backups and copies? Preparation is what makes the difference. And to show you what I mean, let me share a real scenario, one that could happen to any of us. This is about Lisa Gavin, who thought it couldn't happen to her. Lisa was in a state of shock and panic as she scrambled through her home on June 12, 2020, grabbing what she could for herself and her 4-year-old son. The Cedar River was rising fast. She tossed clothes, snacks, and some toys in tote bags. There was just no time to think. The flood was already here, and they needed to get to safety. When she bought this house 7 years earlier, the realtor laughed off her question about flooding. You are a mile and a half from the river, and this is a low-risk zone. Nothing to worry about, right? Well, low risk does not mean no risk. That spring, it rained and rained until the ground got to the point where it couldn't soak up anymore. The Cedar River swelled 17 feet above flood stage, and the rain was still falling, and the water was still rising. Lisa's basement filled with water, 6 inches at first, then more to the point where her sump pump could no longer keep up and failed. Her freezer overturned, spilling all its food. Her dryer was floating around like a toy boat in a bathtub. But the hardest part wasn't the appliances, it was what the water did to her genealogy. Lisa had stored many of her family's keepsakes in cardboard boxes on a table, but that was knocked over, and the boxes were dumped into the water as well, ruining her photos and important records. She said, "I really thought we were safe here, and I had no idea how much damage floodwater could do." Since then, Lisa stores her documents and keepsakes in waterproof bins. She created a grab and go bag with copies of her important documents and has an emergency plan for places that they can shelter. In 2024, another flood came, but this time, Lisa and her neighbors were ready. They used sandbags, brought things to safe storage, and were all able to evacuate early. Lisa's experience reminds us that disaster doesn't always come with a warning, but with preparation, the outcome can be different, and that's the key. If you're prepared and protected, you can recover. If you're not, it could mean years of genealogy gone forever. We know that disaster comes in many forms, from fire, floods, accidents, or even neglect. Sometimes it can be outdated technology, like a CD or a USB you can't open anymore. It can be because no one knows where your genealogy is or how to access it. Without preparation, years, even decades of family history can disappear. So, as you can see, your genealogy can be at risk. Here are some sobering numbers. According to a survey by the National Genealogy Society, nearly half of all genealogists report losing records to disasters or digital failures. And over 60% admit they don't have a proper plan at all. That means more than half of us are at risk. And even if disaster doesn't strike, there's another quiet danger. While we don't know the exact percentage, many family historians' genealogy are simply discarded after their death, lost because they didn't take the time to share or donate. These alarming statistics show the vulnerability when genealogy is poorly managed. Today, we will explore some practical steps to help you ensure your genealogy is preserved. So, why does preservation matter? Because it safeguards more than just papers, records, and keepsakes. It protects the time, the effort, and the love we've poured into our genealogy. It keeps alive the stories and traditions that have been passed down to us and makes sure that future generations can feel the same connection we've been blessed to have. So, what happens if you do nothing? Well, as Pablo Picasso so wisely said, only put off until tomorrow what you are willing to die having left undone. If we put off safeguarding our genealogy, we're gambling with our legacy, and that's not a chance we should take. For us as genealogists, that means we shouldn't wait to safeguard our work, because tomorrow may never come. Your first step is about organizing and inventorying what you already have. Think of this as creating clarity before disaster strikes, or think of it as creating a roadmap, not just for you, but for anyone who may need to step in someday. Now, it's easy to underestimate just how much genealogy we have and the number of places we have it in, like on shelves, in boxes, in old email threads, and even in apps we forgot we signed up for. Let us look at one way to take an inventory of both your physical and digital genealogy so nothing gets overlooked. Organization isn't just about being neat, it's about creating a system that someone else can understand and pick up where you leave off. That means choosing a method, organizing your genealogy, making an inventory, and categorizing what you have. For some of you, it's about turning those scattered piles on your desk into a system that's clear and easy to follow. Now, many of you may already have this step done. If so, congratulations. Because less than 20% of us have a fully organized and inventoried collection with backups and an access plan in place. Most of us fall somewhere in the middle, partly organized, but incomplete, outdated, or scattered across devices. And for 40 to 50%, the truth is, it's just piles on your desk and shelves, in boxes, or buried somewhere in your computers. That's why the first step is so important. It gives you control before disaster strikes. We all have been researching for a different number of years, and some of us longer than others. I would like you to take a moment and think about where all your genealogy is. Is it in binders, folders, and maybe boxes on shelves? Is it on CDs, DVDs, or USB drives that are in your desk drawers? How about your digital files on your laptops, tablets, or computers? And don't forget your family trees and DNA results that are online. The truth is that many of us have our genealogy everywhere. Creating an inventory will not only get you organized, but it will also show you exactly what you have and where it's located. Now, when it comes to a method, there's no one right way. You can keep it simple by using just pen and paper. You can use an inventory form, an Excel spreadsheet, or even voice dictation apps. When organizing, start by sorting. Separate the physical from the digital items. Then, group similar items into categories, and don't forget to label everything clearly. The more obvious your system is, the easier it will be for you and others to understand. Now, when creating categories, make sure they make sense for your collection. For example, physical items might include vital records, photos, or heirlooms. Your categories can be general and then be broken down into more specific if need be. Here's an example of a physical records worksheet. It is a simple way to track what you have, such as certificates, photos, and heirlooms. It lets you record where each item is stored, and you can make notes even about its condition. Digital items might include DNA files, files on cloud storage accounts, files in genealogy software, social media, or research notes on your laptop. And many of us keep our genealogy on websites like Ancestry.com, FamilySearch.org, or MyHeritage. Your categories again can be general and then be broken down into more specific areas if need be. With a digital inventory worksheet, you can track where your files are stored, what format they're in, and whether they've been backed up. That way, nothing gets lost in the shuffle. These worksheets can save you time, prevent duplication, and give you, your family or genealogy guardian, a clear roadmap to follow. If you use worksheets, consider them to be living documents. So update them whenever you add or discover more genealogy. Keep both digital and printed copies and plan to review them at least once a year. Once you have everything inventoried, your next step is making sure it's safe. So how do we protect and preserve all this genealogy? Here's the golden standard for digital, the 3-2-1 rule. Keep 3 copies of your data on 2 different types of media, with 1 copy off-site or in the cloud, such as Dropbox, OneDrive. Creating a digital backup is a very important step in preserving your digital genealogy. And be sure when making backups that you test them. Many people make backups but never confirm if the files will open. It's all about reducing risk before the unexpected happens. Now people always ask, should I use cloud storage or an external drive? And my answer is, use both. The cloud is great because it's off-site and always syncing. External drives are private and don't need a subscription, but can stop working. When using them together, they give you layered protection. If you have a Gmail account, you do get some free cloud storage. And if you need a lot of cloud storage, you will need to get a subscription. Just remember, keeping it updated is the only way to make sure it stays protected. Here's something many of us forget to check. Are your storage devices up to date? Technology changes quickly. Most laptops no longer have CD or DVD drives, and these disks do degrade over time. If your data lives only on older media, it may be at risk. I suggest that you evaluate the age and condition of your media and devices once a year and consider transferring your genealogy to more current devices. Now, we've talked about the 3-2-1 rule for digital files, but what about physical items? Your paper records, photos, and heirlooms need protection too. And just like with digital records, think in terms of backups. Make scans, photos, or photocopies and store them somewhere else, whether that's with a family member, in a safe deposit box, or even donate to a local society. That way, no single disaster can take everything from you. When safeguarding your physical genealogy, store them in a cool, dry, and dark place, but avoid attics or basements. Use archival quality boxes, folders, and sleeves to reduce damage. Don't forget, labeling is just as important as storage. For physical photos and documents, use a soft pencil or archival safe pen on the back margin. Clearly label boxes and folders with a family name, date, or category. For heirlooms, attach acid-free tags that include the owner's name and the item's significance. Always handle fragile items with clean hands or cotton gloves, and if possible, make a digitized copy. It will help reduce wear from handling. If you scan items such as photos or documents, be sure to keep it simple. 300 dpi for documents, 600 dpi for photos, color for anything handwritten documents. When labeling digital, please don't use scan one JPEG. Use names, descriptions, and dates. It makes your archive usable, not just for you, but for anyone who inherits it. It is best to save photos in TIFF for preservation and JPEG for everyday use. When you digitize your family photos, you might think saving them in folders is good enough, but over time, it becomes harder to remember who's in the picture, where it was taken, or the significance of the moment. That's where metadata comes in. Metadata is hidden information stored within the digital files that helps you organize, search, and preserve family photos more effectively. The key is to keep your metadata consistent across your archive. So ask yourself this: how am I really storing my genealogy? If it's tucked away in a cardboard box in the closet or sitting on a bookshelf, it may feel safe, but it's not. A fire, flood, or even a busted water pipe could wipe it out in minutes. If you are using cardboard boxes, then you may want to think about investing in a waterproof, fireproof container for your most valuable items. When looking at purchasing these containers, make sure that if you are going to store electronics such as USB drives, that the heat rating is appropriate for what you want to protect. We never know when disaster will strike. That's why a grab-and-go bag is essential. In an emergency, you won't have time to think, and this bag will help ensure you don't lose your genealogy and other important information. You can easily create a checklist of items. Divide your bag into 3 categories: records, supplies, and personal items. Now, if you pair this with fireproof containers and backups, you will have covered both physical and digital risks. We've talked a lot about protecting against disasters, but there's another reality: what will happen when there's no one left to care? I want to share with you another brief, real scenario. It is about George Cavendish III, who came from 4 generations of military men. He was very proud of that legacy, and in retirement, he dedicated himself to preserving it, not just his own story, but those of his father, grandfather, and great-grandfathers. He wanted their sacrifices to be remembered. George's military roots run deep. His great-great-grandfathers fought in France. His grandfather served in both world wars. His father was a decorated general in the Vietnam War and awarded the Purple Heart. George himself joined the Army in 1985 and served until 2015. So as you can see, the Cavendish name was built on service. As I mentioned, after retiring, George poured himself into research. He visited archives, researched online, read diaries, and pieced together 100 years of military history. The result? A 437-page book documenting the service of every military man in the Cavendish family. He displayed their medals in a custom shadow box that he had built himself. But George had no close family left. He'd been divorced over 2 decades ago and never had children, and he hadn't spoken to his only sibling Margaret in 32 years. He lived alone, with no one truly close to carrying on his legacy. The only regular person in George's life was Edward, the local Meals on Wheels delivery driver. Edward was kind and respectful. He'd often stay to listen to George's military stories. George never asked for much, but he appreciated having someone who listened. One day, Edward found George had passed away in his sleep. There was no written will, no instructions, no one knew what to do, and no one had been designated to protect what mattered most to George. The public administrator's office eventually located his sister Margaret, who was in poor health, so she asked her daughter, Susan, with whom she lived, to handle the estate. Susan and Margaret lived across the country, and Susan had never even met George in person. Susan wasn't even aware of research that George had done. She had a busy life and a family of her own, along with caring for her mother, Margaret. To her, this was just a task that needed to be done: sell the home, move on. The realtor told Susan that the house should be emptied before being listed, so she hired a local junk hauler. Everything, the furniture, keepsakes, research, the shadow box. Even the original book manuscripts went into the dumpster. George had printed 2 copies of his military family history book. One of them was meant to be donated to the Library of Congress, but he never got around to mailing it. And now, both copies are gone. George's story didn't disappear because he didn't care. It vanished because he didn't plan. There was no designated genealogy guardian, no action taken, there was no one left to protect it. So, as you can see without a plan, even the most honorable legacies can end up in the trash. So, let's face a difficult question. What would happen if your time on this earth suddenly came to an end? Would your family know what to do with your genealogy? Would they continue your work, or even know where to find it or how to access it? Or would it all be lost, tossed aside, or forgotten? This is why an action plan is so important. Even the best preservation efforts can fall apart without clear instructions. Let's talk about how to create one and why naming a genealogy guardian is important. An action plan should at least include what your genealogy contains and where it can be found, what items are to be donated, and to whom. Include any usernames and passwords to online accounts, and make sure that the right people have a copy of your plan. This gives your family a clear roadmap, and this plan can easily be added to your will or estate. Now, I want you to notice the photo on this slide. This was one person's action plan for protecting and preserving her genealogy. I have mentioned genealogy guardian a few times. So, what is a genealogy guardian? Well, it is simply a trusted person you designate to care for your genealogy after you're gone. It could be a family member, a friend, or even an institution. The key is choosing someone who understands and values your genealogy. Now, a lot of us use online research companies, especially for our DNA results, or to research and store our family trees. So, adding someone as a beneficiary to your account would help with guaranteeing that your information won't be lost. Now, many of these websites do have legacy or beneficiary options. Each company handles access a little differently, so it's important to know what your options are. Ancestry has a legacy policy, Family Tree DNA allows you to designate a beneficiary, and even social media such as Facebook allow legacy contacts as well. In many cases, the easiest way is to give a list of your usernames and passwords to your genealogy guardian. You may want to include this information in your action plan as well. And just so you know, there are samples of beneficiary forms online that you can download and use with your plan or will. Also, genealogy companies get bought up by other companies all the time. Ancestry.com and MyHeritage.com are examples of that. They have bought up several smaller genealogy companies such as Find a Grave, Fold3, RootsWeb, and more. Remember, once a company is bought up, their terms of service may change. So keep in mind, websites and apps don't last forever. You should always read the terms of service and make sure you know how to export or transfer your data if you need to. And lastly, let's talk about what it means to pass on your genealogy, whether it's donating to a local society, sharing with your family, or uploading to an online archive. Your genealogy deserves a permanent home. This final step is where preservation becomes legacy and where your efforts can continue to make an impact for generations to come. Now ask yourself, do I have anything I want to give or donate, such as keepsakes, documents, or even stories? And who will take over my genealogy after I'm gone? Answering these questions now can prevent confusion later. If you are planning to pass your genealogy on to a family member or someone else, have a conversation with them now so they know what they will be receiving and whether they really want it. Don't assume. Share this knowledge and include it in your action plan. If you would like to donate to a society, library, or archive, do your research. Make sure the organization is a good fit for your genealogy. Always provide an inventory to make their job easier. And whatever you do, make sure your family knows. So, again, be sure to give them a copy of your plan. There are several different types of repositories you can donate to, such as genealogical libraries, universities, museums, archives, and societies. Many of these repositories have guidelines or applications for you to fill out. They also may not have the staff to organize your genealogy, so again, before donating, organize and label everything clearly. Providing a summary will help future researchers navigate your genealogy and, whenever possible, include digital copies. Here are just a few places in North Carolina that accept genealogical donations: Old Buncombe County Genealogy Society, Henderson County Genealogical and Historical Society, North Carolina State Archives, North Carolina State Library, and North Carolina Museum of History. And here's a few that are located around the country: FamilySearch.org in Utah, Denver Public Library Friends Foundation in Colorado, Library of Congress in D.C., Midwest Genealogy Center in Missouri, New England Historical and Genealogical Society in Massachusetts, and the Vermont Genealogical Library in Vermont. If your genealogy exists in digital format, you can easily donate to archive.org, ancestry.com, myheritage.com, and/or familysearch.org just by uploading your information. By doing so, you will be making your genealogy available to all researchers and preserving it for future generations as well. And once you've made your decision, communicate. Tell your guardian, your family, and your executor where everything is and where everything goes. Silence is what leads to lost legacies. Don't wait until it's too late. Start now, even with one small step. Create a backup, jot down where your genealogy is, or choose a trusted person to carry your work forward. Sharing isn't just about donating, it's about making sure your family history continues to live on, whether with relatives, societies, or the broader genealogical community. So, here's what you can do this week to start protecting your family history. Organize and inventory your genealogy. Make an action plan. Choose your genealogy guardian. Donate or share wisely. And remember, preservation is a process, not a one-time task. This brings us to the end of today's presentation on safeguarding your family history. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope I was able to provide you with inspiration, motivation, and the information you need to protect and preserve your genealogy. As an added bonus, you can download 12 free handouts plus a Q and A list at ancestryseeking.com/handouts when you sign up. If you found today's webinar helpful and want to dive even deeper, I encourage you to check out my book, Here Today, Gone Tomorrow. It expands on everything we talked about today and more, and is available in paperback or ebook format on Amazon. When you visit my website, be sure to explore my blog posts, mini webinars, and resource library. And please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Wishing you all the best in your research and preservation.